Joining us now with reaction is Sarah Parshall Perry, Senior Legal Fellow at the Heritage Foundation and former Senior Counsel to the Assistant Secretary of Civil Rights at the U.S. Department of Education. Sarah, thank you for joining us on this breaking news day. We'll just start with your top-line thoughts on the decision.
Oh, well, I have to tell you, as a mother and as a lawyer and a constitutional scholar, it is a good day all around. I am excited by the fact that none of the votes on this particular case, this watershed case, have changed. That means that the court was not subjected to the political pressure and the public outcry that some worried might actually be the case. We've seen these justices at their private places of residence really subjected to the kind of unprecedented harassment and intimidation that is unlike anything we've seen in modern history. But the opinion itself looks largely to be precisely as it was when it was leaked first in February. Justice Thomas and Justice Kavanaugh filed separate concurrences to emphasize different points. And Chief Justice Roberts filed a concurrence in the judgment. He may have indicated different reasoning, but he did concur ultimately with the entire majority here. And that means that there was no attempt or no successful attempt to try to find a middle way, that in the end, they decided that Roe or Casey had to either stay or go, and it was time for both of them to be sent to the dust heap of history.
Yeah, Sarah, and let's talk about the safety of the justices now. We saw that a lot of people did protest outside justices' homes, and they have for weeks, even before they pass another law. And I guess the issue might be, were they protesting, expressing their free speech, or were they trying to intimidate and affect the course of a decision being made by a justice? So you could make that argument. But now that it has been made, if they were to go to the homes of the justices now, do you think that would be treated differently?
I would like to see I would like to see Merrick Garland and the Department of Justice ultimately look into what's happening outside these justices' homes. There are still 7 remaining decisions on very big questions, including constitutional questions like free exercise and free speech. So the fact that these justices are still active in a sitting term before the conclusion of that term indicates to me there might well still be a criminal penalty violation. And I'm encouraged by the fact that they were non-responsive to that pressure. I can only imagine what that feels like, to be subject to that sort of invasion of privacy at one's individual residence. And I'm hoping that for the remainder of the term, as long as they are at those private residences, that we see now a simmering down of some of this political rhetoric. Finally, we've sort of seen the opinion everyone has been waiting for. And ultimately, in the end, these justices have to go back to doing their jobs without influence from the public.
As we've been awaiting this decision, we knew it was on the docket. We didn't know exactly when it was going to come down. It came down this morning. We have heard leaders from states governors speak out about where they stand on abortion, quite frankly. And I'm paraphrasing here, but essentially in New York and California, both state leaders have said a woman would be able to have access to abortion, at least within New York, California, and there are plenty of others as well. But there are at least 13 states that I'm reading have these so-called trigger laws, which would go into place, and that would impact a woman's access to abortion in several states, including Arkansas, Idaho, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, North Dakota, Oklahoma, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, and Wyoming. Sarah, tell me about what those states might be anticipating following this decision.
Well, the nature of our federal government is such that there might be a patchwork of laws. And while it might be unsatisfactory at first, it is the appropriate operation of representative government. Abortions will be undoubtedly easier to get in California and in New York, for example, both of which have virtually unrestricted abortion access. Washington, D.C. as well has virtually no restriction on abortion. So there will be difficulties in some states. It will be easier in others. That is the nature of how our constitutional republic works. And yes, there will be implications constitutionally. For example, there is a constitutional right to travel interstate. So these states may have limited ability to restrict the individuals, the women in their states, from traveling across state lines to actually get an abortion. But these are some of the questions now that under the 10th Amendment, individual states will have to wrestle with, and that is how representative government ought to work.